So hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And welcome to this year's virtual field trip put on by Grades of Green as well as the Los Angeles County Sanitation District. My name's Malcolm from the Grades of Green team, and we're so fortunate and excited to be spending part of today with you guys and our friends from LACSD. So for those of you who were not able to join us in previous years, LACSD puts on a great field trip every year where they normally take students on site through these facilities in person. And Grades of Green has greatly enjoyed this partnership with them over the last couple of years. And so, however, we're really thankful that we can do this virtually so that more of our climate solutions campaign teams are able to join us from all over the country as well as all over the world. And if you're watching a recording of this, thank you for joining us later. Just a reminder that registration is still open for the climate solutions campaign, and you are able to find more information about that on our website. So as you can see here, like I said, this was our live field trip last year, which was really, really fun. I know all the kids had such an awesome time. Okay, so I know, for all you students, field trips are pretty scarce this year because you're doing school from home and everyone has a different situation. So this year we've decided to bring the field trip to you. So we have two super awesome tours that we're gonna take you along. A brief overview. First, we're gonna hear from LACSD's General Manager, Chuck Boehmke. And then first, you're going to visit the San Jose Creek water reclamation plant, and you're going to see wastewater being treated so that it can be reused. And then next, you're going to see how food waste within LA County is recycled and turned into green energy. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Chuck.
Thank you, Malcolm. You just gave me a promotion. You made me the general manager. I'm the assistant general manager, but good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the LA County Sanitation Districts. Congratulations on being here today and participating in Grades of Green's Climate Solutions campaign. You, your team, your school are taking an important step to help the environment by fighting climate change. Now, the districts has been partnering with Grades of Green for 9 years, since 2011, and we're happy to be part of the program again this year. As Malcolm mentioned, normally we'd be meeting in person at our main office, which I miss. And when you saw that first picture of all the kids around the sign, my office is actually right behind that sign. So it's a great place to visit. Maybe sometime in the future you can. A little bit about us. We are a public agency and our job is to protect public health and the environment. And we take what people consider to be waste and we convert it into resources such as recycled water, renewable power, and recycled materials like plastics and paper and cardboard. And we do this by operating very large wastewater treatment plants and trash recycling facilities, or MRFs, as they're sometimes called. So we do two main jobs. As I mentioned, we treat wastewater. That is, we collect sewage. That's what goes down your sinks, your toilets, any of your drains in your house. And we process it and we turn it into clean water, which can then be reused. We also take trash that's put out in front of your house or put out by your school, and we remove the recyclables like the paper and the cardboard and the bottles, and we send it to processors who can turn it into new packaging material. So as you're going to discover in today's virtual tours of our two facilities, that we process solids from the sewage and also food waste from the trash, and we turn it into energy. And Basil's going to go over that a little later to tell you how we do that. And we produce electricity and biogas. And by doing that, we reduce how much electricity, oil, and gas we have to buy from others. And this helps fight climate change in a really big way. So since Grades of Green began, they have empowered over 600,000 students to take care of the environment. And that is a super impressive number, considering they just started 13 years ago at one elementary school and it spread from there. I am very impressed when I heard that. So thank you all for participating in the Climate Solution campaign. We can't wait to see your creative ideas and how you put them into action. And remember, your experience in the Climate Solutions campaign might lead you to a career in science or even in environmental engineering, and you might wind up coming to work at the sanitation districts one day. So that's it for me, and I really hope you enjoy your virtual tours of our facilities. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Chuck. Now I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. and allow Basil to share your screen.
Okay. All right. So San Jose Creek Water Reclamation Plant and our food waste recycling to energy program. So let's go through this.
And if you guys have,
pardon?
Sorry, if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the chats or the Q&A regarding the field trip.
Okay. So we were formed in 1923, and this is a shot of the Santa Monica Bay back in the 1920s, early 1920s, and you're looking at raw sewage going into right on the shoreline, like if you go to Venice Beach or Manhattan Beach, Redondo Beach, and this is a huge health problem, and it led to people only living to be about 50 or 55 years of age. So the people of that era passed a law that created the sanitation district. And so we were formed 1923. And since that, and our mission is to protect public health and environment, as Chuck said, and really it's evolved over the years, not only protect public health and the environment, but what people consider waste, we're looking for ways to turn it into a resource. So today we serve about 5.6 million people. In the shaded area, we serve 78 of the 88 cities in LA County, and I've highlighted some of the cities as far north as Lancaster and Palmdale, as far south as Long Beach and Carson. We treat about 400 million gallons of sewage per day. That's enough to fill the Rose Bowl 4 or 5 times a day. And I want students to wrap their mind around this concept. We're going to generate sewage one way or another. And if these treatment plants weren't here, this sewage would wind up in your rivers or your ocean. And so we take it in these treatment plants and we clean it up in a matter of 10 to 12 hours. So how does sewage get to one of our 11 treatment plants? When sewage leaves a home or a business or your school, it goes through a little sewer line that then goes to what we call a local line in your city, and then to one of our trunk sewers. These are big sewers. They're as much as 12 feet in diameter. And to give you an idea how big they are, here's a trunk sewer we're installing, and you can see the workers can stand straight up in there. Maybe Shaq can't stand in there, but a 6-foot person easily could stand up in there. We have about 1,400 miles of trunk sewers all throughout LA County, feeding to our 11 wastewater treatment plant. Today, we're going to focus on our biggest water reclamation plant, and that's San Jose Creek. The San Jose Creek Water Reclamation Plant sits at the 605 and the 60 freeway. It has an east side that treats about 320 million gallons per day of sewage, and a west side that treats another 28. So combined, that treatment plant treats about 50 million gallons of sewage a day. And that's the sewage generated by over 1 million people. And it's been in operation since 1971. On our tour, so we're going to take you on a virtual bus tour, we would typically get a close-up of the San Jose Creek East facility. So this is a tertiary treatment plant, and I'll step you through what that means. It has 3 steps. Primary step, which is just a wastewater coming in. We slow it down, and by slowing it down, the heavy stuff sinks to the bottom, and we skim the stuff off top. The second step is a biological process. These tanks are teeming with naturally occurring microorganisms, and we've taken what nature would do, and we sped it up by giving these microorganisms more oxygen so we can have more of them. So they eat on that stuff, and then they settle out. And then the third and final step is basically filtering that water and disinfecting it with bleach. So that's why this is called a tertiary treatment plant. So when sewage gets to this treatment plant, it arrives at this building. This is called an influent pump building. The sewage is about 30 feet below this building, and inside there are these pumps, if you see my cursor. And what it's doing, it's pumping the sewage up to ground level, because we want a gravity flow. When the sewage leaves your school or home, the sewer line is at an angle because we want that water, that sewage, to go downhill so we don't have to spend money pumping or energy pumping it uphill. So by the time it goes downhill or down gradient to our treatment plant, it's about 30 feet below the ground, and then we have to pump it up to this level. There seems to be a raised hand. I could take a question if there is. Chloe has a question.
It's down now.
Oh, okay. And Samantha as well. All right. All right, so I'll keep going. So it's now in the influent pump building. So now everybody has a drone. So let's show you what it looks like. You see the influent pump building here where my cursor's at? It's pumped into these covered tanks. These are all about 10 feet in depth. And they're covered to keep the odors in, because you can imagine what the odor of a million bathroom would smell like. So we have it covered and it's under a vacuum and we're pulling all that air in. And no tour is complete without flipping the lid on the primary tank. These are actual shots of the raw sewage, and I mean raw sewage, at San Jose Creek. And yes, it's as gross as you think it is. And this is what's going on in those tanks. In those tanks, you have these chains and these baffles, and they're moving, they're flights, and they're moving. And what they're doing is the stuff that's settled to the bottom, it scoops into openings, and that gets settled out and for processing. The stuff that's on top, it skims, those arms come up and they skim off the top of the water, and that comes out. And that takes about 60% of the impurities or pollution in wastewater just comes out with this primary treatment step, which takes about 2 hours to slow down the wastewater and let these baffles do their thing. From there, the water that comes through the primary step goes into these secondary aeration tanks. You see all those bubbles? This is basically the biological process that occurs at the heart of the treatment plant. These same microorganisms that would occur in nature, they're in these tanks, but we've given them a lot of oxygen. And let's come down from our drone and look at the ground level. So when we do the physical tours, we would walk through these railings, and you see the bubbles, they're being caused by discs at the bottom of the tank, bubbling air through so we can support trillions and trillions of microorganisms. So it's like a fish tank. These things are the microorganisms in the tank. We feed oxygen through there, and it's like having a 10-gallon fish tank, where maybe if you have no oxygen in it, you could only have 10 guppies in it. But you bubble oxygen in, you could have 100 guppies. Well, those more guppies are going to need more food, and the food is the wastewater that left the primary tanks. And that's the heart and soul of what we're doing at San Jose Creek. We've sped up what nature would do. And then we even have a laboratory crew that makes sure our version of guppies and goldfish are healthy, because we want to make sure those things are thriving and eating and reproducing. And then we return them to the front end, and then we waste some. So let's go. And then after we fed them, we've settled them out, right? So as you look at these tanks, if you look through the water, you'll see clouds that we call flocks. These are microorganisms that have multiplied, they've stuck together, and now they've settled out. We were feeding those microorganisms the organic material that wouldn't settle out, right? We settled out the stuff that sunk to the bottom, the stuff that skimmed on top, but there were particles that were organic, food in nature, that wouldn't settle out. So the microorganisms ate them, and then they stuck together and settled out. We have some raised hands. Genesis, do you want to, do you have a lot of raised hands, Genesis? I could take a couple of questions.
No,
okay.
we have no raised hands. They come up and then down. But actually, someone asked, how long does it take to build?
To build a treatment plant?
I'm thinking, because it just came in right now, so I'm thinking yes.
All right, well, yeah, I mean, usually treatment plants we can do 3 to 4 years. I mean, yeah, 3 to 4 years to build one from scratch.
Okay, and then the next question is, can you explain what a guppy is?
Oh, it's a type of fish. You know, a typical fish you'd have in a fish tank. My bad. All right. So now we've settled out the stuff in the primary treatment process. We've grown microorganisms, and they've settled out. And this is the secondary effluent. This is the water that leaves the secondary treatment. This is pretty clean water. But this water, we don't even drink it in this country. We clean it even further, even though 1 billion people around the planet don't even get water this clean to drink or use every day. So the stuff that we've settled out, that came out of, the heavy stuff in primary, some of the microorganisms that we wasted because we grew too much. One of the neat things about this treatment plant is all the stuff that's settled out, we put back in those trunk sewers that I showed you earlier, and it winds up in our treatment plant in Carson that we call the Joint Water Pollution Control Plant. And we do all our solids processing, all the breaking down of solids at that treatment plant. We settle out those solids down at that plant, that wastewater treatment plant, and it goes into these circular structures called anaerobic digesters. And they're set up just like our gut. The secondary tanks are set up like a fish tank. These are set up just like our gut. They're oxygen free, the same microorganisms that would live in our gut, they're in there and they're consuming, they're eating that material and they're giving off gas. And that gas is the biogas that we want to harvest. So I just want to show you what the digesters look like. This is about 10 feet off the ground. And if you went inside, it's about 50 feet high because 40 feet is below the ground. So here's a board in here that's about 6 feet in height. And you can get an idea of how big these digesters are. And so the gas that's produced by these microorganisms in this oxygen-free environment, this biogas, it goes to our power plant that you see here, and it generates about 20 megawatts of power, enough for 20,000 homes. So, and think about it, this power basically is used to run that large treatment plant. That treatment plant is essentially energy self-sufficient, and it saves us and your folks, the ratepayers, at least $15 million a year, and we're running it off this biogas. And then the stuff that comes out of the digester, right? So imagine like our stomach, the microorganisms are eating as much as they can. The stuff that's left over, called biosolids, we truck it off-site, we compost it with ag waste, and then we turn it into soil amendment. So that, I just kind of did a detour and showed you what happens to the stuff that gets settled out. Let's finish the trip of this water. So after the clean water leaves the secondary treatment, it goes to tertiary treatment, which is filtration. These filters are about 15 feet deep, and you're looking at a drone shot down, looking down. There are 20 of them. The water goes from the top down. Here's what the filters look like when they're dewatered or empty. And here's a good cross section. The water comes in, then you have cold sand and gravel that it goes through, then it comes out. Then we disinfect it with the bleach, and then we either reuse it or dechlorinate if it's going out to a river and ocean. And this is what the water looks like. In 10 to 12 hours, we went from raw sewage to this. This is essentially drinking, it meets essentially drinking water standard. Nature would need months to clean this up, but through that secondary process with all those microorganisms, we sped up that whole process. And then what do you do with this valuable water? We used it to recharge groundwater, recharge wells in the area. So here's an aerial shot of spreading basins in Pico Rivera. If you and your folks are driving south on the 605 near Pico Rivera, those ponds of water is recycled water. It's going on the ground and it's sinking through. And then people downstream since 1962 have been pulling that water out and using it for various things. So since 62, we've recycled over 1 trillion gallons of water. And throughout LA County, we have over 950 reuse sites, from agriculture to industry, landscaping. We even have lakes that we've made with this recycled water. That recycled water also supports habitat. Here's San Jose Creek East. So here's an outfall. So if this recycled water isn't used on the golf course, and they're one of the takers of this recycled water, let's say it's raining or they have enough water, we can discharge it right here and it helps support habitat. And here's a close-up shot of the San Jose Creek habitat that's been created by this recycled water. And with that, I will take some questions. Hopefully this Cliff Note or Sparks Note version of our tour, it wasn't too overwhelming, and I wish I could have given you the full effect. And but
can you tell us why we use coal, sand, and gravel, and bleach?
Oh, so the cold, sand, and gravel. So when the water leaves the secondary treatment process or secondary treatment, it's pretty clean, but you might still have some particles in there. So you use the cold because it has if you look at it under a microscope, it has a lot of surface area to get things to stick to it. And so just think about it, it's creating like as the water goes through, any particles that may still be in that water get stuck on the anthracite coal, the sand, and gravel. So it's basically, instead of using a cheesecloth, this is the coolest, the easiest way of getting those particles out. And then the water is really clean. And the thing about that coal, sand, and gravel setup, we could clean that every day by shooting clean water from the bottom up, what we call backwashing. So we can clean that every day. And every day we have a clean filter to, again, get the impurities that might have gotten out of secondary treatment. And then the bleach is really to disinfect. That's just another layer of protection. Let's say there's some type of microorganism that got through the primary, secondary, and tertiary filter. The bleach will kill anything that's left. It'll destroy it. Any viruses, bacteria, and so on. Hopefully that answers the question.
Cool. And when you clean up this water, does it become drinking water or tap water?
It essentially meets drinking water standards, but in the state of California, we're not allowed to drink it, but it's safe enough to drink. In the old days, folks would drink it, but we're working on a project to further even purify it to like ultra pure bottled water. But what we do, you can use it for agriculture. You can put it on the ground, and as it goes through the ground, it also gets additional cleaning because the ground acts as a filter, and then there are also additional filter, and then there's also microorganisms that would chomp on anything that might still be in the water. So we do put it back in our water supply, but not directly. And it's, like I said, chemically, statistically, it essentially means drinking water. It's essentially drinking water.
Okay, and I don't know how much, if we have time for more questions or if we need to, okay, we'll go to the food waste one now.
Okay, let's move on. So let's take a look at our food waste program. And a lot of stuff in this program, you saw earlier, because one of the things that makes us uniquely positioned to handle food waste in California is because we have anaerobic digester, and we also have solid waste facilities. I mentioned we handle 400 million gallons of sewage every day. Well, we manage a fourth of LA County's solid waste every day. We can't pick up the trash, but when those trash trucks come to your home or school, they can wind up at one of our facilities. So in LA County—
Thanks, Basil. Sorry for interrupting. So the time now is 12:40. I know some of you guys have to run to class. We would love if you could stay on for the end of the virtual tour. But if you guys have class and stuff at 12:45, please don't hesitate to run. But like I said, we are still going to finish this tour and have a little bit of time after for questions as well as answers.
Okay, very good. So LA County generates 21 million tons of waste per year. Just LA County. Of that 21 million, 9 million tons per year is buried in landfills. And of the amount buried in landfill, 1/3 of that is organic in nature. And of that organic waste stream, half of that is food waste, or 4,000 tons of food waste is thrown out every day in LA County. And here's a shot at our Point of Hills material recovery facility of some of the food waste that comes in. And that food waste, when it's disposed of in a landfill, it can release methane to the environment. And methane is a greenhouse gas 23 times more disruptive than carbon dioxide. And when researchers look at food waste around the planet, it's responsible for at least 6% of the greenhouse gas in our environment. And with all the regulations, everyone want to control, address climate change, California has passed a number of laws that are coming down, that are in the books, that require businesses that generate a certain amount of organic material to divert it away from landfilling to either composting or anaerobic digestion. And that's why this Grades of Green program is great, because they're helping meet the law to keep this food waste out of landfill. And then there are a couple more laws that are going to require further reduction. So California's coming down really hard on businesses and cities to make sure this food waste doesn't go to landfill. So we have a program that can help businesses and cities and schools divert this food waste. We have existing buildings. We have this Point of Hills material recovery facility that you see on the left that we can accept this food waste. And then we have anaerobic digesters that the law says you can put in there because these are concrete containers. They're hermetically sealed, so no methane releases to the atmosphere. So I'm going to step you quickly through our recycling program, our food waste recycling program. It has three major steps. One is we get the source separated food waste and we create our own slurry or smoothie. So this could be source separated food waste and in a bin behind the local Ralph's or Superior, or if your school has something like that, you just put food waste in there, like old tomatoes or whatever. And then you could bring your hauler can bring, or someone can bring it to our Point of Hills material recovery facility. They weigh that truck, they charge them a certain amount, and then they go inside and dump their load. So let's take a ride inside the Point of Hills material recovery facility. So we'd be following this facility is completely enclosed. It's designed to recycle anything of value. So if you look to the left, you see these baled commodities or basically plastic, cardboard, something. We're trying to keep it out of landfill and recycle it, reuse it, turn the waste into resources. So pre-COVID or post-COVID, we'll be able to drive in there and this would be the look that you would get. You can see the waste that's piled up here before being sorted. And over to the right is where we're taking food waste. In this, every day we take about 30 tons of food waste at the Point of Hills material recovery facility. And I'm showing you a quick video from when the first load was started up this program. We've been running this program since 2018. We had a trial period for 4 years, but this program's up and running. So this is the auspicious day, the great day where we first started this food waste program. And you can see this heavy equipment dropping food waste into this hopper. And even though this is source separated, this is mean we've taken an attempt to make sure we separate the food waste from other things such as plastic as much as possible. There's still a great deal of plastic in there. So when this gentleman hits the switch for the first time, what he's trying to do is now put it through two filters that are going to separate plastics and metals from the food waste, which we want, because that's just pure energy. And you'll see in a second, even though this is clean or source separated food waste, you can see all the plastic that's still in there. And that stuff gets landfilled. And then we put that food waste through another screen, an even finer screen, and you find smaller pieces of plastic and that also gets landfilled. That stuff that is maybe plastic, didn't have any energy value, and this is the good stuff. This is the slurry. This is our food waste smoothie that we want. And here's the setup. Here's the hopper. Here are the two bioseparators that create the smoothie. And this is where we store the smoothie. And if we need extra water, it's in this white tank. Just like making any smoothie, you might need to add water. We can add it from there. And we store it, the smoothie, in this tank. And then driver will come along, fill the tanker. As you see here, he's filling the tanker truck. And then he'll take this tanker all the way to our plant in Carson. So the material recovery facility is at the 605 and the 60 in the City of Industry. The tanker truck will wind up in Carson at the Joint Water Pollution Control Plant, the same place where the wastewater solids went. And we'll offload it into these receiving stations. And then we're going to put it in those same anaerobic digesters we saw on the tour of San Jose Creek. And the gas from those digesters will be used to make energy, different forms of energy. So the same digester, but now we've taken 5 of these digesters and we've mixed it with the wastewater solids as well as the food waste, and that gets digested over 15, 16 days. And you've seen this before. And you saw how big those digesters are. We take that gas, we put it through jet engines to generate power. The heat exhaust from those engines generate additional steam power. And then 20 megawatts of power, as I showed you on the previous tour, is generated, enough for 20,000 homes. But here's the deal. we can take more and more food waste or food waste slurry at the joint plant. As we get more food waste or food waste slurry, we're generating more gas than the power plant needs. So what we've done, so here's the top of one of the digesters. We recently built a pipeline, an underground biogas pipeline. If you follow my cursor, this pipeline is going to go to an existing fuel station that we have on the at the intersection of Sepulveda and Figueroa, where we're selling compressed natural gas. But come November, we're going to replace that fuel supply with the gas from the food waste and from the digesters. So we built an underground pipeline that'll take the gas right to this biogas conditioning facility. It'll be cleaned up, it'll be stored here, and then it'll go to this fuel station that's open to anyone in the public with a compressed natural gas vehicle. So coming down from the drone, here's what the biogas conditioning system looks like. The biogas from the digester is about 62% methane. And then after it's removed moisture and other impurities, it winds up 90% methane. We store it here. We sell it as fuel. Come November, this will be the fuel supply for this fueling station. And then the last step is what happens to the stuff that's still left in the digester. The microorganisms have generated as much biogas as they can, but there's stuff left over. So that stuff is mainly water. So we put it through these devices called centrifuges, and they de-water this material, this digestive solid. It takes it from 2% solid to 30% solid. The digestive solids are spun and the water is spun out of it, and now you reduce the volume. So here's what comes out of the centrifuges. We call it biosolids cake because it looks like crumbled chocolate cake. And again, this is a resource that we're going to look to recycle to turn into a resource, a waste that we're looking to turn into a resource. So that gets loaded on trucks again, and then we compost it with ag waste and we use it as soil amendment. So right now at the joint plant, we're handling about 300 tons per day of food waste slurry, but we could take more. We're looking to double that, and that's the capacity of the treatment plant. So right now we're producing the equivalent of 2,000 gallons of gasoline from this food waste program. And it's not gasoline, but the energy equivalent. As we expand, we expect to get to about the equivalent of 5,700 gallons of gasoline in terms of energy equivalent. And as we get more and more food waste, because this law is going to be coming into full effect in about 1.5 years, we're going to still produce electricity for vehicles. We'll produce natural gas for vehicles as well. And then we're also looking at other things that maybe even injecting it in the natural gas pipeline. But the bottom line is to address the problem of food waste going into landfill and diverting it and turning it into a resource. So we have a pretty cool program, and I think that concludes the virtual tour. But it jives really well with the Grades of Green program, trying to divert food waste from landfills, either composting it or putting it into an anaerobic digester like the districts has. So tell your school districts about this program if they're not aware of it already. And I will take questions.
Okay, so for about how much compost do the sanitation districts make?
That's a good question. I know that at the joint plant in Carson, we have about 50 truckloads a day of biosolids that we have to process. I'm not sure what the conversion of that was. 50 full-size truck a day, because a lot of that, 400 million gallons a day produces. That's a lot of wastewater. So we have 50 trucks a day that go and it's composted. So I don't remember what the capacity of those trucks were. I don't know if Chuck remember.
Real quick, I know we're a little bit over on time here, so I just want to say thank you everyone for joining us. If your teams, when you reach the stage in the climate campaign where you need to reach out to an expert, these are great experts that we have here on hand. Basil knows, he's so knowledgeable about everything that he talked to you about today. So don't hesitate to reach out to them. They are a fantastic resource. Just a quick reminder, that if you're watching this live or if you're watching this as a recording, remember to earn that bonus point. You're going to send one interesting thing that you learned during this tour to your Grades of Green advisor. And so we will also be sending out a recording of this shortly for those of you who are not able to attend live. Also, if you have to jump right now, we're going to still continue to answer questions, and we will send out a recording so you can listen to the answers to those questions later. Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And if they want a virtual tour, I mean, it's just kind of rush. We can also set that up for them in their school. So
that sounds awesome. Thank you, Basil.
Any questions?
Okay, yes. So did you, what was it? Oh, so do the trash trucks already bring the food waste to you sorted, or do you sort out the food waste when they come to your facility?
We want it sorted already, and that's where, like, your school district, it would be great. When we say source separated food waste, we don't want the food waste mixed in with a lot of plastic and other things, because you remember the pictures of those digesters? It's just going to be more stuff to clean out. So we rather have as much pure food waste as possible. We rather you not waste the food, but if it's going to go in the trash, source separated. That means keep plastics out, metals out, and that means that, you know, there's less stuff we have to clean. Every like 5 or 6 years, we have to clean those digesters, and we don't want a bunch of gunk in there. We rather the food waste, the microorganisms will eat that food waste.
And is this the same as everything that we put in our green bins?
So the green, this is a little different, and we also recycle organic material at that Point of Hills material recovery facility, like yard waste and so on. That's a different recycling program. So this is different. Yeah, for the folks that are bringing food waste to us right now, they're mainly from restaurants that have a program with their haulers or their cities where they have a specific bin for food waste. And I'm not aware of any school districts that are bringing their source separated food waste at this point. But I think it's a great idea. So I said, tell your school district if they're not doing that.
Okay, and this is a really good question. The natural gas that you say that the plant generates, is that the same as the natural gas that's already underground in the pipelines?
It's methane. So it's methane, but it's being created by these microorganisms that live in an oxygen-free environment. So they create that methane. So it's similar to natural gas. The problem is, if it winds up in the atmosphere, it creates some issues in terms of climate. And so by putting it in the digester, the digest completely seals. So we know none of that methane can escape to the atmosphere.
Okay, and how many gas stations are there?
So the one we have, the one I showed you in the virtual tour, is one we have with a company called Clean Energy, where that's where we're taking our renewable natural gas. In terms of the number of compressed natural gas fueling stations in Southern California, I'm not quite sure what that number is.
Okay, and then a few more. How long does the whole food waste recycling process take in general?
That's a great question. I would say that it probably takes 24 hours from a truck coming. If we're taking raw food waste, it'll go to the facility, the Point of Hills Material Recovery Facility. It'll be turned into a smoothie. Then it'll be trucked to the plant in Carson. So that whole process will take probably 1 to 2 days to generate gas. But then, yeah, I would say 1 to 2 days to start generating gas.
Okay, how many cities in your district are doing this program? And can I get my city to do this program from Los Angeles?
I'm not sure. I know at least 8 cities that we deal with are doing this, but I don't have extensive knowledge. And I think a lot of cities have to start doing it because the laws are already on the book. And in my understanding, about a year and a half, cities are going to have to start diverting that food waste, or there are going to be consequences. So I'm not sure what city are they from, but yeah.
Los Angeles.
Oh, the city of Los Angeles, probably has a program like that, or they could even look to, work with our folks and see if they can bring food waste to us.
Yeah, I put our email, or I will put our email in the chat so that you can get in contact with us about helping you with your food waste recycling program.
We could serve the right person. Yeah.
So what does the future of food waste look like to you? What do you think the future of food waste will look like?
And I think it's the state of California. I think they see a world where food waste just doesn't go into the trash. So it'll almost look like Sweden. I think in Sweden, food waste doesn't wind up in the trash. So I think what a lot of the lawmakers want to do is the same thing. That either if the food at your school, if it's still edible, donate it to a food bank. Don't just throw it in the trash. And then if it's not edible, then either compost it, and that's where Grades of Green comes in, or you put it in an anaerobic digester that are completely sealed. That's the future as best I can tell.
All right, cool. About how big are those gas pipes that?
The new ones?
Yeah.
I don't know how, they're not as big as our trunk sewer. Let's compare to our trunk sewer, they're tiny. Our trunk sewers are as much as 12 feet in diameter. I don't know, a matter of inches, I would imagine. But I could get you an answer to that.
And then can you remind us how many loads of food waste we process a day?
So we do 30 tons of food waste a day. I don't know how many truck. I mean, it varies on the truck size, and I would be guessing. I know it's 30 tons of food waste a day. I don't have a feel for how many trucks that is. What I can tell, raw food waste at the Point of Hills Material Recovery Facility. What I can tell you is that facility can handle 5 times as much raw food waste. And then at the treatment plant, the joint plant in Carson that takes the smoothie, the food waste smoothie, it takes 300 tons per day, and it can do double that amount, if that's not too confusing. So 30 tons per day of just carrots and tomatoes before the smoothie, and it could do as much as 5 times that. And then if the smoothie that gets delivered to the treatment plant, it's doing 300 tons per day, and we could do twice as much. Hopefully those numbers aren't too confusing.
About how many people work there?
At the joint plant, a couple of hundred. At the Point of Hills MRF, I want to say about 40 people, and then, full-time staff.
All right. So where do you get the 30 tons of food waste from each day? Is it mostly from grocery stores?
Yes, grocery stores, restaurants. So grocery stores, restaurants, and most grocery stores, restaurants, school districts, we hope. And I don't know the specific, but I know grocery stores and restaurants are a big one. But if a school district they can have a program where they work with their hauler to make sure there's a bin for, like, even at our office, when we're in office, we have a bin where we separate the food waste so it can go to the material recovery facility. So anyone that generates over a certain amount of food waste every week, they have to have a bin. The law says you need to create a bin for just the food waste. So we get a lot from grocery store, restaurants, and I would imagine some school districts, but I'm not aware of which ones.
Genesis, I think we are gonna have time for 1 or 2 more questions, maybe one more. We will create thank you guys for asking all these great questions. We're gonna jot all these down, and we will talk to Basil and Genesis offline, and we'll create a frequently asked question sheet, and we'll send that out when we send out the webinar as well. So I think we have time for one more question.
Okay, this is a lot of pressure.
Question.
Do you want wastewater or food waste?
Oh, your call. Let's do food waste.
Okay, food waste. So what is done with all that other waste that they bring to the MRF? Because you mentioned, there was more trash that people took and food waste was a part of it. So what's done with everything else that they take?
Yeah, and so and that's a whole different another virtual tour. You got like the Spark Notes or the condensed version. But usually when we do a virtual tour, so when the waste comes in, we try to characterize what's in there. So if it's plastic and cardboard, we will bale that up. You remember as the truck came in, you saw those baled material to the left? Well, we try to sell that. If we get a bunch of yard waste, we recover that and we give it to someone who composts that. If we get clean dirt, we can use it give it to other folks. I'm trying to think of what else we recycle there, but we're trying to recycle as much as we can. And then whatever we can't recycle, we unfortunately have to landfill. But the first step is look through it. What can we do to repurpose that? And food waste is an easy no-brainer as long as it's separated out and it's relatively clean. So
Cool.
that's
Very cool.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Basil and Genesis, and everyone for presenting. This was really, really cool and really, really awesome. And thank you guys all for joining, whether it was live or watching the recording. So now I think we're going to finish up, and so look out for an email from us at Grades of Green with frequently asked questions. Wendy, are there any closing remarks you'd like to make, or Kim?
Yeah, I just would like to say, visit us again, and in the interim, we will send our staff into your classrooms and into your homes until you can come and see us live again. And just thank you for joining us. We have online educational resources for students in kindergarten through college, so please reach out to us. We want to be part of your educational experience.
And I'd like to just say a final thank you to our friends at LA County Sanitation Districts. You have been a big supporter of Grades of Green and all of these amazing student eco leaders. I cannot wait to see how they work with you this year. And thank you so much for not only these virtual tours, but offering to be experts to our students. And as you saw, they have a lot of questions. So I'm sure they're super excited to work with you. So thank you.
Thank you. Our pleasure.